Hello, hello. Oh, the title. Oh no. Started off bad. This is what happens when you take a couple of weeks off, a little bit of time off. Oh, we're moving the background. It's a beautiful start. It's a beautiful start to the pod. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Evil Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast. This is a podcast where I pretty much talk about everything Evil Geniuses, although I will make a caveat for the start of Worlds because I do want to talk about the start of Worlds. It's coming up next week. I'm really fucking excited for it, even though EG has no participation in it whatsoever. But I did want to talk about it because it's something that I'm very excited for it. So I want to discuss it. But other than that, I mean, it's going to be talking about League of Legends, some of the hype coming up for Worlds and the storylines and whatnot, and just kind of like why I'm so excited for Worlds, and then also going to talk about the World songs. I think some people kind of have some people are very maybe not as appreciative as they should be of the World songs. Um, I wanted to give some perspective on that from a guy who's followed Counter Strike for 7+ years. Um, and then other than that, we've got in Valorant. I wanted to kind of catch everybody up. Not much has really changed on the whole EG players situation with EG and trying to sign with other teams. The situation has pretty much remained stagnant, like a Cold War almost. And I think it's really fucking up other teams in the Valorant space. And so I want to discuss that as well and how EG could potentially ruin VCT Americas for next year if things don't go the way that they should. Um, and then also want to talk about the Game Changers team. They've looked really, really good in this lower bracket run. I've been watching the games. It's been super fun to watch. Want to give them credit. Want to talk about them. The Game Changers squad is it's a team that I usually keep up with it. I don't watch all the games. Usually I'm not able to. But I have been able to this time, and I've been very impressed with the team. So I wanted to give my thoughts on that as they play the finals against version 1 today. It's a very important final, but I'll get into those the reasons for that a little bit later. And then yeah, the last thing. Oh, sorry. Last thing that I can think of is Counter Strike team. Uh, I don't know. They qualified. They've played their first CS2 games. In the I think it's I don't even know the name of the qualifier. It's some crazy location. Might be in I think it's in Asia. I don't know where it's specifically in Asia. I don't know if it's China or somewhere else. But they played an online qualifier for that, and they were able to get through. So we'll discuss that. That's a small win. They still have to play in the closed qualifier, however. So we'll see if they're able to make it through that. They've got some tough competition there. And that's typically where they struggle is the top end of the competition in North America. That's where they tend to lose games and lose series. So we'll talk about that, and then talk about their run or their lack of a run through the Blast Showdown qualifier. Oddly enough, it was in CSGO rather than CS2, which is a fucking joke. But yeah, just kind of discuss that and discuss my thoughts on the team overall, where they're at, and where I hope to see them in the next couple of months. Um, so without further ado, let's get started here with some League of Legos. Some League of Legos. So let's talk about Worlds. I'm pretty fucking hyped for Worlds. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like, I think it's because like even though EG's not going to be there, I mean I still have some NA. There's no hope, but I want NRG to do well. Out of compared to I want NRG to basically be the best North American team at Worlds, and to surprise people because of contracts, obviously, um, and just that team has a really cool storyline. I really like their storyline. I really like that it felt a lot like the revenge storyline that we had at EG, where he was playing mostly well. He did have games where he underperformed, but he had very good games, and you could see that he was very emotional about being one of the best teams in the LCS regular season. Obviously, didn't turn out that way by the end of the season and in playoffs, but um, it does feel like that kind of storyline. So I really want NRG to do well at Worlds. That's not why I'm excited for Worlds though. I don't care about the Western teams at Worlds. The only team that I remotely care about is G2. I want G2 to do well because I think they actually have a chance. But honestly, I'm just excited for the storylines from the LPL and LCK. I mean, these storylines are fucking amazing. We'll talk about the World Song in a second. But to just kind of like break down all these teams, man, like, dude, Worlds is going to be sick. Like, I know people are all predicting JDG to win, and they really should. They do have like the most incredible players on paper, um, and their teamwork. Like, somehow they have the talent and the teamwork, which normally you only get one or the other, but they have both. And they're obviously going for the Grand Slam, right? They've won both of their LPL playoffs. They haven't lost a best of five, I don't think. They won MSI. They're looking to basically just round off the Grand Slam with a World's victory and be one of the best, if not the best team in League of Legends history. So obviously that is an incredible storyline. But all these other teams from the LCK and the LPL also have some intriguing storylines. And so I just kind of wanted to run through those very quickly to just, it's exciting, man. Like Worlds is looking really exciting this year. I'm so glad it's in Korea and not in a place like NA, which I know that sounds crazy because I'm from NA, but frankly, like the passion that's going to be in Korea for Worlds is just better than it would be in North America. It just is. Like in North America, most of the fans were LPL and LCK fans that showed up to support teams rather than NA fans supporting NA teams. So I think that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Fuck having Worlds in NA. Like, look, it's a cool experience for NA fans who don't ever think they're going to be able to see a Worlds, obviously. But in terms of like the actual like the hype of it being there. Like I think Tokyo or not Tokyo, Korea and China are just the standout. Like yeah, you want Worlds to be there. EU sure, obviously, but I think LCK, Korea and China are like that's where you want to be for Worlds. It also just provides for better practice and scrimmages. And I think the overall like one thing that sucked about Worlds last year is like the teams came over so late. I mean, they basically came over and they immediately started playing games. You didn't get that same atmosphere of like teams sitting there boot camping against other teams and really trying to, improve during the couple of weeks that they have before playing matches. Like it was basically just like it's go time. You have to play. And yeah, so I don't know, just this Worlds this time it just feels like Worlds. You know what I mean? It feels like Worlds. Um, And so yeah, so let's run. I'm gonna run through the LPL teams first. So you've got JDG, like I just explained, who are going for the grand fucking slam. They've won everything. They haven't lost a best of five. They have incredible players, Knight, Kanavi, obviously, and Ruler, I believe, as well. Like this team is just fucking stacked with talent. It's insane how good this team is. 369 as well, like a fucking rock. Like this team is just so good. And it does pain me as a top esports guy that 369 and Knight both go over to JDG and are now on what might be the best team of all time. But whatever, that's besides the point. The point is JDG is a fucking amazing team. They look spectacular. They did look shaky against LNG in their playoffs, their summer playoffs series, but JDG is just so hard to beat. So the question is, are they going to pull it off? Are they going to win Worlds? Are they going to capitalize on this opportunity? Only time will tell. You look over on the other side, LNG, right? I just talked about LNG. Obviously, the big hype with LNG is that they just had a very, very strong performance in the playoffs of the LPL and almost beat JDG. And I think the key standout, obviously, is Scout. Scout has been fucking unreal from the mid lane. I think I don't know if he was MVP twice this year in LPL. I know he got it at least once. But the dude is a menace. He's just so fucking good. And the question for LNG is, can they continue this form? Is this something that can be repeated? Is this who LNG is now, or was it just a flash in the pan? Um, you know, Move over to BLG, the team that LNG beat in the playoffs. BLG, a team that had the best regular season record, I think maybe of all time in the LPL in a split. Um, the team looked incredibly good, but Obviously, they just have to. The big question with them is, can they face their demons and beat JDG? Yes, they did lose to LNG in the playoffs, but JDG has really been the thorn in their side. They cannot beat JDG no matter how hard they try. And so the big question is BLG finally going to get over that hurdle? If they can, this tournament is as good as is just as much theirs as it is anybody else's at the top of the team list. Next up, you've got Weibo Gaming, which is a shock result where they ended up beating Top Esports in a ridiculous series. But yeah, Weibo Gaming, the surprise of the LPL, making it to Worlds. How good are they actually, right? Do they have any form of consistency? The Shy, classic, thing with the Shy is his inconsistency. Can this team, how far can they go? How good are they? Are they just going to bomb out? Are they going to be the LPL team that bombs out of Worlds, or are they the team that's going to surprise people? Only time will tell. Moving over to the LCK, you've got in Korea, you've got Gen G. Obviously, Gen G, the Church of Chovy, right? Gen G has been this fucking incredible team the past couple of years. The big problem they've had, arguably, this roster they have this year is maybe worse than last year because they had Ruler last year, who many people have said is the best player in the world right now. Um, you know, so they have Pays now, who's filled the role quite well, but obviously he's not Ruler. But Genji has still looked incredible. The big question with Genji is, are we going to get the Genji at Worlds that we normally get, which is, or the Genji that for some reason changes their play style, doesn't play the way they normally do in the LCK, and for some reason the team just doesn't look as good. Chovy last year at Worlds wasn't particularly as good as we would hope Chovy would be. Can Chovy get back to that level? Can Chovy can he play at his LCK level in Worlds? And can Genji finally break this curse they have of not being able to perform um, to the level they should? And I think unfortunately for Genji, because of all of the missed opportunities, if they don't make the finals this year, it's probably not considered good enough unless they were playing like a JDG. If they play JDG and lose in the semis, that's whatever. But if they're not playing basically if they're playing any team but JDG and they don't make the final, that's a disappointment for Gen G. That's just where they're at now. T1, obviously, you had the crazy period of time where Faker was injured and not able to play with the team. The team was dog shit. Faker comes back to the team and they immediately make the finals of playoffs. So that's fucking ridiculous. But Faker's not as good as he was in the spring split. In the spring split, he looked like it was like kind of a resurgence for Faker. He's not that same level coming into this Worlds post injury. But what is incredible is that Faker's impact on this team is undeniable at this point. And the question is, how far can they continue to develop, and can Faker heal and show even 75% of his spring performance? Where does this team really stand? They're clearly a good team, but are they capable of getting to the finals? Are they capable of winning Worlds? I don't think people are ready to say that yet, but it's up to Faker and the rest of their team to figure out how good they actually are, if they can make a repeat finals appearance at Worlds. Then you've got, let's go with KT Rolster. KT Rolster was the BLG, you could say, of the LCK. Very good in the regular season. And for some reason couldn't perform in playoffs. Granted, they lost to T1 actually in summer playoffs. So pretty shock result there. KT Rolster, a very strong team, but KT Rolster fans are used to disappointment. So we'll see how it goes at Worlds. But if KT Rolster can bring in that form that they've had for most of this year, they could be a title contender. Then you have the final team, which is D plus Kia, Dam 1 Kia, whatever it was Dam 1 Kia, now it's D plus Kia. This team has incredible talent on the roster, but has been very shaky throughout the entire year. Incredible talent. If they can just get the pieces to work together, and if Showmaker can step up a little bit more and get back to the Showmaker that we want to watch, this team is as good as any to win the whole Worlds. They've looked very poor, honestly, throughout the entire year, but and not as good as what people would hope from players like Canyon. Canyon's been very good but streaky. Deft has probably been the most consistent player on the team, and he's been classy. Um, Showmaker has dipped in form, and so granted, in their qualifying match to go to Worlds this year, they did look quite good, even though they were, I believe, considered the underdogs. Maybe I can't remember specifically, but still D plus Kia looked much better in their qualifying series. So maybe this is a DRX 2.0. They have defs, and it is an eerily similar storyline where DRX last year didn't look that good, went into that final series, pulled off a win, looked okay, and they were in the play-ins. Granted, D plus Key is not going to be in play-ins, but is D plus Kia, is this a similar storyline here? Is D plus Kia going to pull the DRX again? That would be an incredible storyline, but it's not seemingly likely. But if this team can pull it together, they have all the talent they need to go deep into this tournament. So I just ran through all the storylines, and those are from the 8 teams that are from the 4 from LPL and 4 from LCK, and it's exciting shit, man. Like I can't lie, like it's gonna be so fucking hype watching Worlds this year. Can't wait. Um, as for the world song, I love it. It's so good, and the music video is just beautiful. I saw an interview that Deft had talking about it, and it was just super heartwarming to hear how much it meant to him. And just the crazy parallel that he looked up to what was his name? Ambition? Is it Ambition? The guy who I might have his name wrong. I'm blanking at the moment. But what the main the player who was shown as the main character for Rise, um, that was Def's role model. So it's just so interesting how that all works and how it just happens to work out that way. Um, that he gets one made for him, and yeah, it's an incredible video, incredible song. But obviously everyone's posting, which world songs did you like the most and all that. And I'm not gonna lie, I posted this on Twitter. I think League of Legends has it so good. The Valorant songs haven't been nearly as good, in my opinion, and the music videos definitely haven't been nearly as good in Valorant. I don't know why Valorant Champions didn't make like a boaster video for this year. You know what I mean? Like they need to do more for Valorant. It's clearly not up to par with League of Legends. But as someone who's been growing up for last 7 or so years playing Counter Strike, I think Riot does a really good job hyping up their tournaments. I obviously don't like Riot as a company. I don't particularly even like Valve, frankly. I like Valve more than I like Riot, but I don't fancy either one of them. But in terms of hyping events up, like their big events, their major events, um, I think Riot does a much better job than Counter Strike does at the moment. And a lot of that falls on the shoulders of ESL now that they have pretty much the run of the whole circuit. I think maybe there was a time in like 2018 where CS:GO did it just as good. But I think those times are long gone now that these TOs have gotten lazy with their production due to COVID. I think that's had a massive impact on things, and I think Riot does a fantastic job hyping up their events. They did it with Valorant with the little trailers they do before each day. Some of those I'll just never forget, like the one in Tokyo with EG versus Team Liquid. That one was super cool, and then obviously the one at the grand finals of Champions this year was not even just for the Jing section, but because of just me being an EG fan for the past 3 years or so, watching and knowing what it's like having to watch those games and seeing them struggle to get to this point. It meant a lot to me, and I can't help but watch that video and tear up every time. So I think Riot does an incredible job with these trailers and music videos and stuff. The music videos are so good, or actually the songs I would say are better than the music videos sometimes. I think I think Burn It All Down and Takeover kind of got more flack than they deserve because the videos weren't as good and because they were around the time where Worlds was in the COVID era, and so there wasn't like these like crazy opening ceremonies. They tried to do it, but it just wasn't the same as like Legends Never Die and Rise. So I think that played a role. But yeah, I think songs like Phoenix, Burn It All Down, um, Take Over. I think those are amazing songs, man. Like to be honest, Riot hasn't really missed since Legends Never Die. The only one that I would say they kind of missed on was Star Walking, and I think that's because Lil Nas X must have had a lot more control over the production. At least it feels like he did, than what normally happens for Worlds. It normally feels like with Worlds, it's like they'll take a unique artist and they'll kind of take that artist and have them sing something that's not their normal style. It's like a mix between that artist and Riot, but it favors Riot. Like the split isn't 50-50. It's like more in Riot's favor than it is the artist, but it's still enough to give the artist like creative, um, you know, a creative, I don't know, take on it. Um, and I think with Star Walking, it felt more like a Lil Nas, just like a straight up Lil Nas X song than it did a Riot Games World song. So it's a good song on its own, but it just doesn't it didn't feel like a World song. It didn't get me hyped for Worlds, and the music video didn't do any favors either. It made no sense. It was stupid as fuck. Um, and yeah, it just didn't get you hyped for Worlds really. So I'm pretty excited with this one. I'm pretty hyped up, and I think you League of Legends guys, you got it pretty good. Stop complaining about your world songs. They're all fucking amazing. They are all, in my opinion, like S tier songs. Like they're fucking great. I love all of them. For the most part, I mean the two were, I think Warriors was somehow a world song, but that's besides those early ones, whatever. But since Legends Never Die onward, they've been fucking beautiful. So yeah, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on that stuff. But let's move on to Valorant, right? Let's move on to Valorant, and let's start with let's see, EG ruining offseason. We'll go with that, huh? And it doesn't fit. Now that's tragic. So how about we do this? And we'll put a couple spaces in here. I moved the background again. My bad. Okay. EG is ruining the off season. Yeah, look, let me just be very clear. The status of the players has not really changed. If I take a look at, I'll pull up Flynn's spreadsheet just to do it, but look, the situation is basically the exact same as it was previous. They, at the end of the day, right, it is up to EG as to whether or not they want the players. They will let the players leave. And so no matter what teams they talk to, no matter what they do, um, you know, the reality is they could all have to stay or not play in VCT Americas next year, which would be a huge risk and could be a potential hit to your stock value. Because I mean, look, if Ye, the best player in 2022, wasn't able to find a single team to play for in 2023 after Cloud9 cut him, like, and now his stock value has gone down to the point where he's playing for Bleed in the Pacific region, like, guys, I don't know what to say. Like, it's really tough. It is really tough to make the decision to not play in VCT Americas if you're given a opportunity, even if it's not a good one. If it's a opportunity, you might just want to take it, and at least prove your worth that way. And so, look, I'm looking at the spreadsheet now. EG's likely players are Ethan and Demon 1. Although, again, that's not because those players like EG. It's just because, like there was an article that came out. I think Richard Lewis posted it saying, Demon 1's relationship with EG is fractured essentially beyond repair. So, look, it's not because these players want to be here. It's because they don't have a choice. It's because they don't have a fucking choice. Boostio it was considered unlikely, and now it's a question mark, right? Like, now it's a possibility. It's like, yeah, I think it's because EG can kind of do what they want, and it's really fucking over these other North American teams in VCT Americas, because if these players were able to join the teams they want to join, these other teams would look really good, man. They'd look really good. Like, Sentinels and Cloud9 weren't looking at really, I don't think. I mean, obviously, Cloud9 at one point was looking for Screwface, but, um, that doesn't seem to be the case, obviously, anymore with MCE getting cut. And Screwface was rumored at one point to be likely to be the in-game leader for Evil Geniuses this season, but that doesn't look to be the case, as Flynn's article has Calm, Boostio, and Jogamo all as question marks, so a possibility. And then which are essentially upgrades over the previous rumor. And then you've got Demon One and Ethan that are at one point were looking like maybe going to NRG, but are now not very likely to potentially go there. So I think AG is holding all the cards, and the status really hasn't changed much, unfortunately. And I would have loved to have seen some of these rosters, man. Like 100 Thieves with Boostio and Calm would have been sick. NRG with Demon 1 and Ethan would have been sick. Jogamo on G2 would have been fucking sick. But it's just, yeah, man, it's just really tough. It's really fucking tough right now. To see what's going to happen with these teams, man, because I would love to have watched G2 and 100 Thieves and NRG have these EG players. They all would have been massive upgrades for each of those teams, and it would have been really fun to watch. But if EG is going to continue to do this and the players don't really have much choice, yeah, we could be looking at a world where 100 Thieves, NRG, and G2 kind of get fucked over, and they end up having to sign players last minute. Because until EG cracks, until EG breaks, none of these other teams are getting what they want, unfortunately. And it's not up to the players. It's entirely up to Evil Geniuses as an organization. And it's fucked up, and it's wrong. And obviously, on a super, a fucked up portion of me is happy that the team is going to play together potentially, as a collective five again. But it's not under the right circumstances, and that's ultimately what hurts the most. What hurts even more is, like I said on the previous episode, where I wasn't gonna buy the EG in-game stuff because fuck them, they're a shitty org, right? But if these players that won the world championship, if a portion of their pay that they got cut out of is dependent upon those in-game purchases, like, yeah, you're gonna force people to pay because they're gonna want to support the players, and it indirectly also supports EG, unfortunately, or rather, it does directly, but it's not the primary reason for why you're paying. And it fucking sucks. It's so brutal, man. It's so brutal, and it really blows that this is the situation we're in. But yeah, like I said, not much has really changed other than it's looking like EG really isn't even remotely thinking about letting these players go. And they're looking to keep the exact same roster, but just with significant pay cuts. So I don't want to encourage people to pay for the in-game stuff, but if this ends up going this way, like, yeah, I'm gonna pay for it. Probably because I want the players to get some of the money back, right? And that sucks. It sucks that that EG gets the profit off of that. It's wrong. Also, I don't believe EG has released the new Valorant Champion shirt. I'm gonna take a look now. I haven't looked in a while, so maybe I'm wrong. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't know this. So, granted, they have a really stupid line here. Even Evil has to take a break sometimes. But EG is redoing their store. So their store is under construction. You can't actually access the store, which is interesting. I wonder what'll change. Once we will be back with our refreshed merchandise site in October. So we'll see. It's October 8th currently. So we'll see when that gets finished. Hopefully they've changed it a lot, and hopefully the shop, not only the store is better, but the merch is better. That they've taken off some of the shit that was really scummy and really poor, and that they've replaced it with good quality merch. but also at the same time, don't miss me with the fucking, unless the proceeds of the Valorant Champions merch is going to go to the players. Miss me with that shit. I'm not paying for it. Like, I just won't. Um, Not until the ownership of EG is better and does better by the players, and can go back to being what EG used to be near, essentially like a decade ago. Just sucks. So yeah, but interesting news. I guess the store is under construction, but no real news in terms of the Valorant roster. It's pretty much the same situation, unfortunately. So let's transition into EG Game Changers. Oh, that's some spelling right there. Game Changers. Team makes finals. And put a couple more spaces in here. Is this gonna fit? No, it doesn't. So now I gotta do, okay. So now I gotta do this. This is so scuffed. This is so scuffed. All right. Good enough, right? Good enough. So, oh, what happened to my? That was weird. So yeah, the Game Changers team has made the finals of VCT Game Changers Series 3, I think. Series 3? Yep. Series 3. I'm not gonna lie, the qualification to get here was a little rough. They played Shopify Rebellion, unlucky to get that matchup in the first round of the upper quarterfinals. 2-1, it was back and forth, but ultimately not enough. They go down to the lower bracket after DSG got beat by a team with a cheater on it, and they beat DSG there. So look, already two really tough matchups. Like DSG is really good. Shopify Rebellion is always the runner-up to version 1, it feels like. So yeah, two really tough matchups early on. They get through that. They go to play Wingman something, I don't know, some team version 1 beat. Wingman Patrol, they beat Complexity, which is pretty surprising. But we beat them easily 2-0. Played Complexity in the lower round 3, beat them. And yesterday, we had a series that I think most people would have definitely predicted EG to lose. Playing Shopify Rebellion, the perennial runners-up, or the always the runners-up to version 1. That this team has been consistently the second best team in Game Changers for a while now. And so it was a big win, but EG beat Shopify Rebellion 3-1. The first map was sketchy as fuck, split 13-15 in the favor of Evil Geniuses, with a comeback on the last couple of rounds of the of regulation that frankly it didn't look like was going to happen, but it did. And thankfully, overtime looked like a different story. The EG just looked better. But yeah, this team is really interesting. This roster, they've just made roster changes a couple weeks ago, and yeah, it's looked fantastic. They got Lori, who used to be a Shopify Rebellion player. They have who's new to the I believe she's new to the team. Starbound is also new to the team, and I've been massively impressed by Starbound. Starbound has been probably like the number 2 option on the team in terms of star power. No pun intended. And it's been great. Like Starbound has been fantastic. This whole since she's been on, since she's been on EG basically. And it's been really exciting. Now we finally have more. It's more than just the Keen C show. It's Keen C, Starbound, and then Power Pixel is like an X factor, right? Lori is the same, right? You got those two that are kind of X factors. Thea is doing a great job as the in-game leader and just kind of, providing that backbone for the team. This team is fucking good, man. This team is really good. I've been really, really impressed with them. Yeah, first map split 15-13. Second map it was a 13-8, and it was EG's pick was Ascent, and it was one of their if not their best map, it was one of their best maps historically. Shopify Rebellion ended up beating them 13-8, and frankly, it just kind of felt like when I was watching the game, it just felt like EG kind of they didn't win certain situations on their buy rounds that they I don't want to say should have, but I would say could have quite easily. They could have made the right decisions, and they were on the cusp of making them, and they just couldn't quite get it over the line. Um, but I think it was 13-8 looks a little bit lopsided, but I think the game was much closer than it was. They actually lost on a thrifty, so I'm not really sold that EG is like. I think the scoreline looks worse than what the game actually was. Let me put it that way. Um, Starbound also having a phenomenal map as well on Ascent. And then Haven was dominant from EG, no issues. Lori was unreal on this map, just all over the place. Keency consistently good as well, but Lori was very very good on the Sova, playing some weird shit, shotguns like just fucking crazy, shorty kills, you name it. And then to top it all off, so now we can say EG has been 13-0'd as an org this year, and they have also gotten a 13-0 because EG 13-0 Shopify Rebellion on Sunset. And if this is their fucking map, bro, like this could give them a serious advantage against version 1. Just in the sense that it's a new map, and EG seems to have a very good read on it. So if that's something that they can move into this next series, which they're playing today, as that I'm recording this on Sunday before 5 p.m. guys. So I'm recording this before the match. I really hope. I wanted to record it after, but I just don't have the time. So I'm doing it before. But I really hope they win this series. It's essentially a must-win series versus version 1. But I'm getting a little distracted. The Sunset pick, or the Sunset match was just a stomp, obviously, 13-0. Lori, 24-7, had a monster fucking game. And Keency and Power Pixel and the rest of the EG squad just kind of had to do their jobs, and it was just kind of a wrap, honestly. Like they didn't really have much of a chance, obviously. Um, they didn't have to play Breeze, so which I believe was a map that Shopify Rebellion beat them on in their previous series. So yeah, kudos to EG, man. Unbelievable run to get to this point. Um, and I think the part that sucks the most really with this is that EG, if I understand the system correctly, EG essentially has to win versus version 1, because if you win the finals of series 3, you book a spot to Brazil. But if you don't and you get second place, you only get 60 points. Now, 60 points is a lot of points, but for EG, that would only get them to, I believe, 120 points, which isn't enough to crack into the top 2. That would put them in the top 4 or 5. So they have to beat version 1 in order to make it to Brazil, unfortunately. So that kind of sucks. But this team, man, they've got potential. I don't know that they're beating version 1. Version 1 is version 1. I mean, anyone who remotely knows Game Changers knows that this version 1 team is just fucking broken. Like, this team is so good, and has so many strong individual players. So it's going to be tough to beat version 1, but I think this team does have a chance on the right day. And so I am hoping that it happens so that we can see EG in Brazil. That would be super super cool. And yeah, I'm really hoping they win, man, because it's been an unreal performance during this little lower bracket run that they've had. With the Shopify Rebellion best of 5 being the first best of 5 they've played. So pretty crazy story, man. Pretty crazy story. Props to them. Super cool. All right. EG CSGO. What a fucking travesty this team is. I don't know. I'm being a little harsh when I say that, but it's it's the same story but a different day with this team. That's really what it is. It really does feel that way. I'm just checking Discord to see if I have a message from Kurrent. I don't think he has messaged me, so I think it's just gonna be me this time. Yeah, it's just me this time. So, um, I don't know where to even begin with this shit. I really don't. I should probably pull up the let's start with the good, I guess. Let me see if I can find the the qualifier that they went through. Let's see if I can go to the result. The let's see, matches. Yeah, so it's the Jönköping 2023 North American Open qualifier is what they went through. And essentially they only had to play two teams. They had to play Might, which is a team that is surprisingly quality players on it. DJ, Classia, Nifty, Scar, and Stamina. Granted, that group of players sounds like a team that's going to break up in less than 3 weeks. I mean, Nifty, Stamina, and Classia, like Stamina and Classia are just classic fucking, like, they stay on a roster for a couple of days and then they're gone. So I don't see this roster staying together at all. But whatever, quality players. So who knows? Maybe they'll try to stick it out. But EG beat them in a best of one. Mind you, this is in CS2, not on CSGO. So they beat them on Mirage 13-7. Mirage seems to be the map that EG wants to pick the most. They're not particularly amazing at it, but it seems to be the map that they really want to be their home map. Then they played Party Astronauts. It was looking pretty fucking dire at first. They got destroyed on Ancient. 13-4 on Ancient. Mirage was a different story, and then Overpass they dominated. So overall, good things from Evil Geniuses. And yes, they do drop a map to Party Astronauts, but Party Astronauts at the time, I think, had just played in their Blast Showdown match. They had played like 4 matches already leading into their EG series. This was a team that was already in the zone of CS. So dropping the first map, really, I don't see it as a big deal, honestly. Party Astronauts seem to be a pretty good dark horse team, so with some quality players. So at least by North American standards. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that. That was a solid result. They've now made it to the closed qualifier along with Forsaken, and now they're going to play in the double elimination bracket on starting on October the 10th. So that's in 2 days as the time of recording. And so yeah, we will see. They're going to play Nouns on Tuesday, and we'll see if they're able to make it through the qualifier. It's going to be tough. I think there's only one slot. Yeah, so there's only one slot. There's 4 teams in this closed qualifier. It's Complexity, who was invited, EG and Forsaken, who went through the open qualifier, and then Nouns, who was also invited. So yeah, basically, there's only one slot available. So it's a double elimination bracket, but there's only one team that gets the slot, and it's up to EG to prove that they can finally make it through a closed qualifier, because they just can't seem to win closed qualifiers. They just suck at it. So we'll see. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that I don't know if they're still having like ping issues by being in different locations. I don't know if that's the case. If so, I don't know why EG hasn't decided to just take them, tell them to just boot camp in the facility. Obviously, I don't know how that works from a ping perspective, but I feel like that's got to be better. Maybe it's not. I don't know, but there has to be a better way to do this, surely, than having people on different pings. And yeah, it's nice for people to be at home, but it might not be the best way to go about things right now. But yeah, let's talk about their Blast Fall Showdown lack of a run. Granted, they are unlucky to have been matched up against the favorite to win the bracket, which is Complexity. Having to play the best team in the qualifier, even including Team Liquid there. I think Team Liquid is dog shit. And they're also playing with Daps as a stand-in. So look, it sucks to play Complexity in your first round. It really does. They're the best team in the qualifier. But you gotta suck it up and play, I guess. And unfortunately for EG, it just didn't work out, and it should have. It should have been a 2-0 for EG, man. They should have won this series. But how many times can you say that about this team? How many times can you say it about this team that they should win a match, they should win a series, and they don't do it? They refuse to do it. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. And the biggest one that I'm going to say here, and it's nothing new, it's the same shit over and over again with this team. And I'm not saying that to sound like I'm so sick and tired of it, I'm never going to support this team again. Look, when this roster was announced and they said that this was going to be the starting lineup, I knew immediately. Get prepared for some heartbreaking results. Get prepared for some sloppy play at times. Be prepared to just have to take the punches when they come, because this team is not going. They're gonna have some good moments, but they're gonna have some bad moments, and be prepared to have to swallow any amount of pride that is somehow remaining in it as an EG fan at the moment, um, and just you're just gonna have to suck it up and watch them lose games. Um, and that's pretty much what's been the case. They've gotten close, but they've never pulled it off, right? This team has potential. They do. They clearly have potential, but they're too inconsistent to play at the level they need to be at. And so that just comes with being a young team with riflers who in Hext and George that have a lot of potential, but need more time basically to get reps. Hext is probably the best player on the team. Maybe you could say Junior is. I don't know. I still have question marks about Junior. I think Junior loses more rounds than Hex does for the team. I do understand that that's also dependent upon the role within the team. Junior being the opper, he's going to take more opportunities and be put in more positions to win or lose a round than Hext would be. So I'm not saying that to shit on Junior, but I do think there are moments where Junior makes unnecessary mistakes, particularly re-peaking into situations where he shouldn't be re-peaking. And I think it did cost us in this series sometimes. But I think other players, look, every single player on this team has a lot of upside, and also sometimes they make poor plays. It happens. It's just the nature of being a young team. Um, and unfortunately, against complexity here, man, it was tough. It was really tough to watch. It was really tough to see EG just throw leads, throw opportunities, and just not perform the way they could perform. I think this team shoots themselves in the foot more than any other team I've watched. It really does suck watching this team just shoot themselves in the foot over and over again. Um, they don't really lose to their opponents as much as they lose to themselves. And I think that showed in this series. 16-14 on both maps, Inferno and Overpass. Um, and it's a resilient team. I'll give them that. EG is a very resilient team. When they lost Inferno, I thought the series was over. I thought Complexity was going to stomp on Overpass. It's one of their best maps, and after a close game like that, I just didn't think EG had enough in them, and EG went off to a 12-3 start. Unfortunately, they lost that map, and allowed Complexity to get to the six to the win somehow. So, but this team really does shoot themselves in the foot. Um, the best way I can describe it is any round where either EG can bolster their own economy or severely punish their opponent's economy, you can almost surefire bet on EG losing the round, including and especially if the opposing team is force buying or has an eco. This team cannot clean up eco rounds. They suck at cleaning up eco rounds efficiently. They suck when it comes to winning rounds that should be easy for them to win. They suck at it. They also suck at just straight up, hey, if you win this round, you're going to break the other team's economy. Hey, if you win this round, you're going to bolster your own economy. They can't win those rounds. They suck at winning those rounds. And unfortunately, no matter how good of a team you are, no matter how much your players are performing or whatever, or how good the comms feel, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter how good your team is. If you lose those rounds enough times in a game, you're gonna lose. You're putting yourself in a terrible position. I mean, on the T side of Inferno, EG really had the opportunity to run it up on complexity, and they just threw the opportunities away. They lost the anti-ecos. They can't win the rounds they need to win. And it doesn't matter if you win some of the gun rounds that are gun round versus both teams have guns available to them. It doesn't, and util, it doesn't matter if you win those rounds if you don't win the anti-ecos. If anything, it hurts you. It hurts you more than it helps you. So overall, that's the big takeaway from this team. Is it hasn't changed. It's been this way for a long time, but they just can't seem to win the rounds they need to win. They can't seem to capitalize on the opportunities when they're right in front of them. It happened multiple times on both maps, and it just sucks to see. Obviously, the CT side of Overpass, that wasn't happening, but you go over to the T side, and this team force buys a lot too. Like if I'm up 13 or 12-3, I understand that you want to just get the game over with, but you should be trying to maximize as many buy rounds as you can, because that's going to make it tougher on Complexity to make a comeback. And so force buying on the second round when you lose pistol just doesn't make any sense to me if you're EG. Like, why are they force buying? Like, maybe there's just shit I just don't know. Maybe I haven't ran the numbers. Maybe if you number crunched, it would be better to force buy. But to me, wouldn't you want to maximize your full on buy rounds to make it as difficult as possible for Complexity to make a comeback? I don't know. It just seems strange to me. Um, Particularly on Overpass 2, like Junior was left alone a lot to just figure shit out on his own in bathrooms, and like he needs a buddy. He needs a buddy over there, man. Like you got to have a buddy system over. You can't just leave your opper alone, fucking A, when you know what I mean. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I had some real. I mean, even though that was the CT side where EG was very good, but I don't know. I really struggle with this team to see they're improving, but it's at a snail's pace. I mean, it is at a snail's pace. The most improvement I've seen from an EG team, and I'll say it again, was the Nealon squad of fall of last year. That team constantly improved. Every single game I saw them, they looked better and better and better as each game was progressing. Um, and I attribute that to Nealon's work ethic and Vorborg's ability as a coach. Um, and it doesn't really feel like this team is improving at the same rate. Um, and it's unfortunate to see. So I'm hoping that they just, even if I understand, I am struggling to deal with the snail's pace of improvement. Please just keep improving for fuck's sake. You look at the stats for the event so far, it's not even finished yet, guys. And you look at the stats, and guess what? EG is at the top of the list for all of the fucking same stats that they're always at the top of the list for. Average damage per round with utility. They're far exceed the second place team of Party Astronauts with EG has a 32.6. Party Astronauts is 24.8. EG is dominating on that part of the statistics. You look at flashes, right? Flash assist, utility. EG is the best team at the event with 0.40 rating. The closest being a tie between Liquid and Complexity at 0.36. They have that shit down. But what they suck at, their trading needs to improve. Their 5v4 needs to improve. Their 5v4, I don't know how it's at 75%, because it felt worse. It felt so much worse than that. It felt like they almost never won 5v4s. Really poor. Really, really poor 5v4s. Their 4v5 percentage is also dog shit. Their trade percentage isn't anything great. Um, yeah, their round win percentage is not great, obviously. It's just also this team doesn't multi-frag. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know what it is, but this team, man, they do need more time, and I understand that. And I'm not saying to blow up the roster. In fact, I don't want to change the roster one bit. Keep the roster the same. Keep them developing. Do not change this roster until at the very bare minimum at the after this major. But yeah, this team. They're frustrating to watch, man. They're a frustrating team to watch because they have rounds where you look at them and you're like, wow, what a beautiful round. Like the players are so good, the coordination and teamwork was so great, the nade usage was fantastic. And then they have other moments where they just throw games. They just throw. They just you know what I mean? Like they're not careful enough, essentially, and they make mistakes. Um, and unfortunately for them, usually during times where they can push the advantage or break the other team's economy. So I don't know. Or it'd be like in a very impactful round for them to win for their economy, right? So I don't know. It's it's tough with this team. Same story, different day. Um, I hope it changes. Um, I'm glad they were competitive against Complexity, I guess, but they really should have won the series 2-0. They really should have, and they didn't. And so that's really frustrating. Um, it was really frustrating to watch that happen. So, um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode, guys. I don't really have much else to talk about. Hope you all enjoyed the episode, and yeah, we'll see what happens with Game Changers and EG CSGO at the end of this next week. Which if I do an episode, it'll be on Sunday. I say might do an episode because I've got some family stuff happening this week, so I don't know if I'll even be able to be at my apartment to do an episode. So we'll see. But hopefully you all enjoyed. I know it's been a little bit of a break since my last episode, but there really wasn't much happening. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. It's a little shorter than normal, which is a good thing in some ways. Um, Hope you're all excited for Worlds. Hope you're all excited for the Game Changers team today, and hopefully the CSGO team improves. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, sorry, I know this is a little bit weird. I don't normally do this, but I had to record because I literally just got off work today. But I had to record because the Game Changers team just went and decided they wanted to win the whole event and actually qualify to Brazil, which is pretty big news, obviously. Um, I don't think anyone was expecting it. Version one, a team that I don't think they've lost a best of series, at least not in the North American Game Changers space. They basically win every single year. Nobody even really comes close to them. And but EG against all odds 3-1 version one. In a really well played series. It's got to be said. Team looked amazing. And this is actually, it was a very important series, as I think I discussed when I was recording the podcast yesterday. Um, that if they didn't win, they weren't going to make it to Brazil. Shopify Rebellion basically wanted version 1 to win, and the one time they want version 1 to win is the one time they don't do it. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Shopify Rebellion fan, I feel horrible for you because it's got to be brutal. Um, you know, Seeing this happen. But credit goes to EG here, man. I mean, they just played incredible Valorant. And I don't know what it is with EG and lucking out on finding these players and finding. I say lucking out because, look, maybe with the Game Changers team, it was different than with the main roster, but the main roster it was a little bit hit and miss, or at least maybe some of the ideas were half cooked. Not by Potter. I'm not saying by Potter, but I'm mostly talking about the upper management. And they were able to find the right pieces, and whether or not they decided to stick with the pieces they did from last year to this year, due to wanting to be a little bit more money conscious, who knows? But it's just crazy to me that both of these EG teams have now produced miracle runs that nobody ever expected and have like shattered the history um, of the North American scene. And in the main team's case, the history of global Valorant. Um, and but EG's Game Changers team looks to the same maybe in Brazil. That would be insane if they were able to pull it off. What a hell of a year for EG. I listen. I hate the upper management. I don't like the management of the organization. They're not what I want EG to be. I don't make these podcasts because I'm a fan of the current EG. I make these podcasts because I'm a fan of what EG used to stand for. Hence the logo on the on the podcast theme screen. There's a reason why I you know repeatedly talk about it, right? Because I think people have forgotten what EG used to be nearly a decade ago. Um, And but these two teams, man, seem to have represented it well. They've seemed to represent what the old EG used to stand for, and unfortunately for the main team, they've been disrespected for it. But in terms of the Game Changers team, they're going on a miracle run, and it's been crazy. And I don't want to say miracle run to imply luck because I don't know that that was necessarily the case. I mean, they were very, they played very well against version one. They played very well against all the teams they played against in the lower bracket, and it doesn't look like some kind of, you know, honeymoon period. It looks good. It looks like quality gameplay. It looks like the guys, well, don't want to say that. It looks like everyone's kind of gelling really, really well and really, really nicely, and the pieces all work. And it's been really, really cool to watch. You know, um, the calling's been great. I mean, there's really been nothing to criticize, which sounds crazy, but yeah, I mean, the team has really stepped up, in particular in the series against version one. Everybody looked really, really good. Um, Keen of course, pulled off another MVP level performance, as they've done the whole event. Starbound, always up there at the top of the scoreboard as well. PowerPixel had a very, very nice series in the final, which is good to see. PowerPixel is one of those players that I mentioned, kind of between it probably should be more PowerPixel than Lori, but um, PowerPixel is kind of that X factor for EG, where if PowerPixel is performing, you can expect EG to be a very difficult team to beat because you can almost rely on Keen C and Starbound to perform as well. Particularly Keen C, just unbelievable numbers, and they had to go against the behemoth that is Fluorescent. And Fluorescent dropped 96 kills in this series. The closest to her was Keen C with 85. So yeah, a pretty incredible back and forth between the two of those players. And overall, it was a really entertaining series to watch. Bind was super close, edge of my seat the whole way through. Things were looking a little sketchy. The V1 comeback was real, and it was definitely nerve-wracking. But EG ended up looking like a different team in overtime, and really closed that one out. Going into Haven, you start to wonder, is this going to be the same story as the previous map? Version 1 coming on a comeback once again, but EG's able to hold them off. 13-11 on Haven. Lotus, yeah, Lotus was. I'm not gonna lie, I had not a whole lot of hope after the first half. That 10-2 half was scary. And EG was close to picking up a couple rounds, but version one looked really, really good. But EG had one pistol, had a nice comeback, made it competitive, 13-10, super close scoreline again, which is pretty unreal considering that they were down 10-2 against one of the best teams, if not the best Game Changers team potentially ever assembled. Breeze, Breeze was a tight one, man. Breeze was a very close game. EG started really hot. Version one looked like the better team for most of the second half. But right at the very end, EG was able to string a couple of rounds together and close out the series. Pretty much all of the maps were situations where EG maybe found advantages and had to make a comeback, or version one was making a comeback. The only exception really being Lotus, where EG was the team making the comeback. But so that was kind of an interesting dynamic that most of the time, you'd see a team that was behind, you know, really push through and try to win the map, instead of teams kind of closing out the games that you think they would. Um, but it was very competitive, very intense, and overall just a fantastic result from the team. And it's really cool to see them make it to Brazil, and so we get to watch them play at Brazil, which is pretty cool, pretty special. Um, I've said this before on the podcast. I I watched some of the Game Changers games in the past. I was able to watch most of this event because of the scheduling of Game Changers this year, and just my own schedule with life in general. So I was able to watch more of the games for this event. But in previous events, it was kind of tough for me to watch some of the games at times. But I always kept up with the scores. I always kept up with seeing how the players were doing. Um, so it feels pretty special to see the team, you know, uh, push through the lower bracket. They had a very tough road, and you know they pushed all the way through and they beat all the best teams. So you can't really complain. It was a fantastic result that I don't think even the players were expecting. So um, pretty special. So shout out to all of them, and the coaching staff and everybody involved. It's a pretty special result. It's a pretty special result. Um, and lots to be proud of. Lots to be proud of for sure. So yeah, it's crazy because EG's Game Changers team was in no way was anyone expecting them, or really everyone was probably expecting Shopify Rebellion in version 1 to be the representatives from NA. But turns out it's going to be version 1 in EG because of this win. So kudos to them. I'm sure some people are going to try to write off this victory in some way of saying, version 1 didn't care because they already qualified or whatever. It's all noise. It's all bullshit. I don't buy that for a second. Uh, version 1 played to version 1's level. And sure, they've been showing some cracks recently, but it's still version 1. They have an incredible amount of talent on that team. Very intelligent. Their compositions are quite strong. They're very flexible. They play good Valorant. And to simply dismiss it as a whatever series for them, I think is disingenuous to Evil Geniuses and even version 1. Um, the version 1 players were pretty upset about losing. You could tell. Um, they mentioned they were going to use it as fuel for Brazil. And so I hope what that means is that version 1 and EG are going to be really, really strong heading into Brazil. I don't think EG is going to be complacent about this. It all looks really cool. And yeah, it's going to be exciting, man. Brazil's going to be pretty cool. Can't wait to watch. Um, you know, and yeah, just not the result that I was expecting at all. But I can't complain. Can't complain with that at all. So hopefully EG treats these players right. But who knows? It's EG, so we'll we'll see how it goes, I guess. But as for the players, just I'm glad they get to kind of bask in the moment a little bit, and then get excited because they're going to Brazil. They get to go to Brazil and play an international event, which I believe the only person on the team who's played an international event is Lori. They might have played, but I don't think it was, maybe not in Valorant. I'm pretty sure she played Counter-Strike as well. I feel like I've seen her name before. So I'm pretty sure she played CS as well. Um, I'm almost positive she did. And so she probably played some LAN events in Counter-Strike. So yeah, but as for the rest of them, Starbound, Keen Sea, PowerPixel, I don't know if they've played any international events or LANs before. So that'll be good for them to get some experience. And I hope they don't feel too pressured to perform. You know, um, they did fantastic even to just qualify. So at this point, everything's a bonus. In my mind, it's almost the same mentality as what the main roster had going into Tokyo. This is a bonus. Just go out there and have fun. Um, and yeah, I thought it was funny that Potter happened to be on the analyst desk and sometimes casting some of their games. Um, and she just happened to be there to witness EG do it again. Um, Pretty crazy, man. So it's such a cool storyline. So, um, yeah, just I had to record something. There's no way that I couldn't record something after that happening, or just wait till the next week. That just wasn't gonna fly with me. So I wanted to record something because obviously, if I post the episode and it's just my thoughts before the version 1 series, without posting anything of my end result, I feel like people aren't going to care to listen to that. So I wanted to put this in there just to kind of give it some closure. As the sun is coming in through my window and it's making me look weird, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm really tired. I probably sound like an idiot, but it's all good. It's all good. So I'm gonna try to get this posted right now. Actually, like when I'm done recording this, I'm gonna add this. I gotta now because I'm doing this in two separate videos. Now I have to merge them together, which doesn't take too long. Really, it's the processing that takes a long time. So I'll put it in the editor, merge them, process that, post it to YouTube, and if you're listening to this now, it's because I've done all of those things already. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Now that I can actually round off the episode. Um, in terms of things to come, I guess I'll do a little outro here. Why not? Screw it. Little outro. Yeah, so things I talked about in this episode. Let's see if I can remember what happened yesterday. So, talked about hype for Worlds. Talked about the Game Changers team, obviously, but I also talked about the Valorant roster and the current situation with the players there, and how potentially EG is ruining the offseason in VCT Americas. By the way, cool interview done by Boostio, or done with Boostio by Sean Gares. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. Really cool interview. Boostio gives a lot of props to the reserve roster players at the end, which is super, super cool because I really want those players to play. I've mentioned it a billion times at this point. I love those dudes. I really want to see them play. And if they don't get put on any of the big rosters, I would love to see them make a it would be so cool if they made a challengers team of those players, like Screwface, all of them. And they kind of made a run. They tried to make a run through challengers. I think that would be super, super cool. So, obviously, I would prefer for them to have roster spots on big teams, because I want to see these guys are good enough to play in those teams. So I want to see them play there. But who knows? You'd like to think that maybe these VCT rosters, maybe if some of these EG main rosters players aren't available, maybe they go pick up some of the EG Academy, or EG, not really Academy, but the EG reserve roster players. I don't know why I said Academy. I'm thinking of League of Legends. I'm sorry. Um, Pick those guys up because I think those guys can do a really sick job, honestly. Like, I think they're incredible players, who have been underappreciated and undervalued by the community, not by EG. In terms of the EG main roster players, I think they've given them their due, but I don't think the community has given the reserve roster players any amount of like notoriety or like massive appreciation for what they've done or like respect them as players. So um, I would like to see that. Um, but yeah, side tangent. By the way, Dota 2, the international's coming up. I didn't talk about it in this episode. I'll probably talk about it next episode because TI is going to be starting at the end of this week. So I'll probably be discussing TI next weekend. And then other than that, the Counter-Strike team being the Counter-Strike team, doing what they do, breaking hearts. No, I'm just kidding. Um, it's tough to watch the team, but I think everyone knew this is what we signed up for, and at the end of the day, just got to keep watching, see if you can find see keep looking for the improvement. I don't think there's been some I think they have more depth in terms of their map pool now. I think that the individual players, what I've noticed the most is the individual players have gotten better. In particular, the younger players. So Hext has looked really, really good. He's looked like the best player on the team. Automatic has had a dip in form, which is surprising and yet also just kind of sucks. Um, you obviously want Automatic to be one of your, if not your star player, your second best player, and he's probably been our third best player. To be honest, our best player might be Junior, but sometimes I think he just, he makes a couple mistakes that kind of cost some rounds sometimes. Granted, he does make plays that win rounds, but he also makes some plays that lose rounds. And I understand that maybe that's a harsh criticism, but I do think Hext has looked really good on this team, and he's looked like our best player. I say that a lot because of the EPL results, right? He was our best player at EPL, and I value that a lot. So yeah, so I think it's probably like Hex number one, Junior number two, Automatic number three, and then Walco and George are kind of whatever. They both do very different things for the team. I've seen improvement from George so far, and I think it's going to be a very similar process with Hext, where it's just going to take time, right? It's just going to take time. Um, it took quite a while, it took like over essentially like a year or so for Hex to, I mean, it's been like a year since Hex initially joined the EG main roster, And I think it's going to be something similar with George, where it's going to take him playing at this level for a consistent period of time before we really start to see that performance improve. Um, and Axe has been talking about how he's been changing a lot about his game. So um, I'm not down on this team yet. I mean, I am upset because I think they shoot themselves in the foot more than they, you know, more than they need to. I think they lose to themselves more than they lose to the opponents. That's what it looks like to me. I'm not just saying that. I'm literally going by like what I see in the rounds. It looks like they seem to kind of make mistakes on their own, lose the rounds they should win. Those they're just being a little bit too sloppy and inconsistent at times. Um, and if they can clean up those small mistakes, I think the team is going to look infinitely better. So I like the progress that I've seen. I wish I could see more progress because I think it's right in front of them. And so that is frustrating, and that's why yesterday I was so frustrated. Um, but I'm not out on this team yet, and I don't think anyone who is excited for this EG CSGO team should be out on this team yet because this is not the team that's supposed to be number one in NA. Realistically, it's just not. Complexity should be the number one team in NA. They have all the experienced players. They've got a Liege. JT has been calling at a tier one level for a while now. They have Halzerk, an EU opper with experience on European teams. Um, you know, they just have the more experienced players. So, so I'm not surprised, honestly, that Complexity is the best team in NA. I would like to hope that EG would be number two, but I think internationally they're probably the number two in NA. They've had better results than the other North American teams when they go international, but regionally, like when they play regional teams or domestic teams, they they don't do particularly well against like M80, Forsaken, Nouns. Those are the teams that they trip up against and they don't win those games. I don't know if that's just a confidence that those other teams have playing at their own homes, or maybe EG still having ping problems. I don't know. But EG seems to perform much better at like the EPLs and stuff than some of these other NA teams. And the problem's going to be at some point EG isn't going to be given those spots anymore. They're going to have to earn them through domestic play. So that's going to be an issue they're going to have to clean up on, but I'm not particularly worried about it at the moment. So, yeah, that's kind of my roundabout thoughts about every topic that I talked about yesterday on the podcast. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. There will be another episode next week. Probably going to be on Sunday because I'm not going to have time to do it on Saturday, even though I want to start doing these on Saturday so I can get them posted on Sunday or Saturday night. But yeah, at the very least, there will be an episode next week. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for. I don't know that I'll do many more Worlds stuff. Obviously, it's not really EG focused, but I am excited for Worlds. But Dota 2 TI for sure. Um, I'm interested to see how the team performs after their lackluster performance at the previous major. Um, so that'll be interesting. And then VALORANT Game Changers. Well, I mean, obviously, there's not really much to talk about until the next event for Game Changers, I guess. If there's any news about the VCT main roster team, any updates on that, I'll give it a shout. And then other than that, the EG CSGO team plays, I believe, tomorrow on Tuesday. So I'll probably discuss those results as well. They're playing in the closed qualifier for some Chinese event or something like that. So I'll discuss that as well. And who knows, maybe Kurrent will join me. We'll see. It all kind of depends on our schedules and if they line up, which has been really the only reason why he hasn't been on the pod. It's nothing internal or anything like that. It's just straight up our schedules haven't aligned at all. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Pretty exciting stuff. EG's in a much better place now than they were a year ago, which it's not by much, but it's something. So, whatever. Uh, and yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.